tokens are almost fueling the AI engine. So it's kind of like just a car that needs gasoline to run. Obviously, AI models need the tokens to process the information and generate the results. And they're really kind of fundamental units that measure the amount of data processed by an AI model. So, that's the sort of count of the pieces of text, whether it's words or characters that the model reads or generates. So if we look at things like, well, how do tokens work? So imagine them almost like digital currency. So each time you make a transaction, and transactions are sort of the inputs or outputs from the model, you spend a certain amount of this currency. So in large language models or language models in general, a single token represents as little as one character or as much as a word. So there's not a finite sort of grasp, which makes it sort of tricky to get a handle on. It's very much down to that specific text. Looking at, what are the gotchas then when you're building this? Well, something you should do if you're building AI into a project is look at cost estimations. So how many users are you going to have? How many tokens are you going to be spending? And there are some quite handy token sort of calculations. So if you're sending specific requests to the model or information, you can actually get a handle on how many tokens you'll use. So sort of coming up with an estimation and a sort of budget, I guess, allocating a budget to say, this is how much we're expecting to use as our user base grows. Very important, because it's all good saying, right, we want to do this, but we realize that this is going to burn through thousands of tokens per user. And we're looking at getting over 1 million users. It's going to get expensive. And that's where you can look at, well, maybe there are other ways of doing this. So like we've chatted about before, small language models and things, even some of the large language models that you can run and self-host could be an option in this regard to really sort of minimize the amount you're actually spending on that.
So there's like OpenAI, Copilot. Do they charge do they charge like a token-based system when you're using their models?
So any of the models will have a set cost, and that cost will, just looking at ChatGPT 4 to 3.5 Turbo to 4.0, the costing is so different, and each of those kind of have a set cost.
I was going to say, do you have a rough idea of what that price may be?
Yeah, it's like 0.03 cents now. It used to be 0.06 cents per 1,000 tokens. So they have kind of like a scale, how it all works out. I think it is important as a business, especially, to understand these costs. As a user, someone just using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or any of the kind of public services out there, you generally just charge a flat fee, and they try and just sort of, guesstimate how much general users start using applications. And if you're a business, I think the more interesting cost is, okay, as your costs scale up around your token usage, if you're giving your users, the ability to generate a lot of tokens, then how do you wrap that up and sort of, make that a cost for your actual end users? You don't really want to push it onto them. You kind of want to make your costing simple. Again, like wrap it up into a certain amount so they can go, okay, our budget that we would be paying for your service would be, $200 a month. But what do you do then as a business to make sure that doesn't scale out, or that you're not aware of what they could be doing?
So if you've come up with that sort of set budget, you've got an idea of your projected token usage, then you've got to be, properly monitoring and setting alerts and setting budget caps. So you can imagine a scenario that I was looking at here is, imagine when we've seen so many AI startups. So, you've got this great idea, you're using, let's say, OpenAI, using another one of the big large language models. You get going with it, you integrate it into your application. You see that the users love the AI features. They start, using your app, engagement is skyrocketing. Then one day you wake up to an Azure bill of 50K overnight, and your startup's in serious problems. And of course, it could have all been prevented with some decent budgeting and setting kind of caps in services like Azure. But you can't really stress enough how important that is, because if you've got a minor glitch in your app's code and it's triggering a loop, and that causes something to hit the AI service repeatedly, you would rack up millions of tokens in a few hours. If you're not monitoring it closely, you don't have a tight budget set, then you're getting that 50K bill or more. So I think that's easily avoided, and it's just through kind of proper cost management solutions and setting those budgets. That's kind of the main point that I wanted to drive home. I think under token cost management is around that.